Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome back to another chat with Matt. So a couple of weeks ago, I did one of my first face-to-face meetings with a customer, COVID safe, I would hasten to add, since the start of the pandemic. I'm recording this middle of June in 2021. And it was really interesting. At the start of the session, I asked the participants to give one word about how they were feeling being back in front of each other, rather than being virtual. And the words ranged from excited, motivated, to scared and anxious. So we get a great variety of how people are feeling as we start to move towards another different way of working as we come out and we start to emerge from the pandemic. So that got me thinking about the importance of the role of the manager in coaching. So I wanted to bring David Cuffley back into our chat today. David's passionate about coaching, for performance coaching, for development, and has got some really good insights that he'll share. So David, how are you?
I'm great, thank you, Matt. And it's a beautiful morning as well. So yeah, all very good.
Yeah, good. And I know this subject that we're going to talk about today is, as I mentioned a moment, is one that you are passionate about. I just want to provoke with a question to start off, if I may. In a good few chats ago now, we've done over 30. It was probably middle of the 30. One of our colleagues said that actually best practice is coaching shouldn't be done by managers because they're too close to the people. It should be done by an external or another person within an organization. And of course, that's always going to polarize views. What's your view?
Yeah, it is, and it's something I've thought about quite a lot, and I don't agree. I don't agree. I think it's a bit black and white. It's a bit polar, and I think I can see where he's coming from, because the fact is, and and I know, Matt, we spend a lot of time talking with organisations who want to do a lot more coaching, but the blocker is it doesn't seem to happen because managers have got so many things to do. But I think there's definitely a role for managers in coaching, but it isn't necessarily to do all the coaching, and that's the challenge I think that it would be good to address today, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's just join the dots between how I started off the chat today with coaching. What role do you think the manager now plays in this transition back to another new way of working?
I think the manager is a key role in that whole process, and guess what? The major part of that is setting the lead. I think is demonstrating by example and giving people a vision of where they need to be heading to, and support in how they can be moving in that direction.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
in the sales, sorry, Matt, but in the sales role, that piece around the key phrase in my head is, well, what do people do when the manager's not there? And I think so, giving clarity so people are clear how they should be working and managing themselves when the manager isn't present with them.
So clarity of what you should be doing, the outcomes you should be delivering. We've always talked about lead and lag indicators. Lead indicators as a reminder of the activities that people do, day in, day out. Lag indicators in the sales world are how are you performing against target. And of course, we've always advocated that you should be coaching to the lead indicators, because that's what's going to make the difference if done well to the lag indicators. So I that resonates, David, in terms of if you've got that real clarity over what is expected, particularly as we start to meet customers in person again, and we've got to do all those important things such as preparation, research, all of those leading indicators. I think you're right, that clarity is important, because otherwise, how do you know? You might have forgotten. It's been a year and a bit since we were doing those things, and we've got sometimes short memories.
Yeah, so and also on that, Matt, I don't think it's safe to assume that everything is going to go back to normal. There's going to be a click of a switch, and it's right back to business as usual. I think there is going to be it's going to be a phased approach. Some things will be different, so I think helping people with a sort of a compass about well what should be changing, maybe what shouldn't be, and actually crucially think about the customer's point of view as well, because where is the customer in all this? The fact is some people will move more quickly than others, And so it's not just about what are we doing in our organization, it's what's the customer doing and what are their expectations of how we should be working with them. So it's a multifaceted challenge, quite a complex one. It's an ideal one actually for coaching, to sort of support people as they think through the issues they're facing with their particular set of circumstances.
Okay, so as a qualified coach, if we've got some managers listening into our chat or they're watching our chat today, give them some advice, David, around the little bit of ambiguity over that transition that you've talked about. What's your advice to them to really provide that coaching support to their people?
I think it's the fundamentals, but as always with these things, it's sort of fundamentals times 3, if you like. So you need to make time for your people, and you need to have regular check-ins, and you need to listen very carefully to what they're saying and also what they're not saying. Because the fact that, and that's again one of the issues with the manager as coach, is people don't always tell you exactly how things are. They tell you what you think, or they think you need to know, and it's a different thing. So I think making time for coaching and really listening to what people are saying, and then giving simple, clear expectations about what you need from them, so that you can focus then on the how they do it rather than what it is they've got to do.
Okay, give me a bit more on listen to what they're not saying. I know what you mean, but for our listeners and our viewers, tell me a bit more about what you mean when you say listen to what they're not saying. Because again, the obvious answer is, well, how can you? Tell me what you mean.
Yeah, and it's if you put yourself into a sales environment again, because most of our audience will be in that sort of commercial environment. It's when you're talking with a customer, it's, well, what's between the words, what's behind it, and actually listening and maybe asking that question or giving people a bit more space. But if you're a bit curious as to why people are saying something, then ask them why, and following up on things. But also giving people time so that it's very clear that it's their agenda that you're focused on rather than your agenda. And how do you do that? By being interested in people, by being curious, by asking maybe that extra question about actually your question, how are you, is a great question, but you have to mean it, and you maybe have it with a follow-up question is why is that, or whatever, because it shows an interest in the answer.
Yeah, I think the point that you made there around time is a vital one, actually, because, as a coach, it's never about us. If you've put an hour in your diary, you're not giving your time away for them, and it shouldn't be viewed in that way. It should be viewed that actually it's their time that you're supporting them on, because as a coach, it's never about you. It's always about your direct report or the person that you're coaching. So, to really listen and observe in that way, I think is really vital, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And as you talk, man, I just think, because that is another dilemma for a manager as coach. In that, as a manager, you do have objectives, and you have a purpose for talking to your people and coaching them. But what you're saying is that it's all about their agenda. Well, it is, but it's about covering off both and actually aligning what you're trying to achieve with what they're trying to achieve and how to do it. And just as I think there is space, or is the space for I say group coaching, but actually getting other team members together in environments where they can sort of coach each other, or at least support each other as they, to your point about coming out of the pandemic, supporting each other as they come through, and what they're seeing and what's working and that sort of stuff. Because that's another form of coaching, of course, is group coaching, helping each other, creating more of a coaching environment.
And how important and effective, I know they're two separate words there, do you think group coaching is? So, and let me give you a bit more context. If I'm not familiar with a coaching framework, but peer-to-peer, we have that dialogue, which is as good as coaching in many respects. How important and effective can that be?
I think it can be really important in terms of setting a safe environment for people to share ideas with and to kick things around with. And if you've got that, then in terms of effectiveness, then you can use that to feed ideas in and feed challenges in, actually, and get people to think about those. The bit that often gets missed is you can have a great discussion about things, but are you really thinking about, to your point about framework, are you really thinking about alternative options, and are you bringing new ideas in, or are you just having a bit of a sort of a catch-up win session? And do you have outcomes coming out as well? But that's where, as a manager, you can actually relatively easily frame that by, let's have a discussion about this. Let's throw in some new ideas, maybe by bringing new people in or by bringing in new concepts. But then also, let's think about simple, effective outcomes coming out of the back of it, which is really sensible, because otherwise it's just a chat.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it should always be outcome focused, shouldn't it? So as we get towards the end of our time today, the end of this chat, David, I just want from you one real top tip. So if you're speaking to a manager, you're saying, if you do nothing else today in terms of your coaching, do this one thing, what would you say?
I would. It's for me. It's about making time. It's about scheduling some time that works for you and for your team. So schedule in. It doesn't have to be a long session, but a short session to focus on your team members and listen to the outcomes. Making time,
yeah, really, really good advice, and I think we can all empathise with that, as we still live in a world of some ambiguity as we go through the next few weeks and months. Probably now, as much as ever, it's going to be important that if you are a manager, you do spend time with your individual. You do not cancel that time. You do listen to what's being said and what's not being said, and make the focus all on them. That way, you truly understand your individual. You are able to support them in the best way that you can, so that the individuals stay with your organization, and so that they perform and develop through your organization. And actually, if you can achieve that as a manager and as a coach, then your role is being fulfilled. So David, as always, thank you for taking the time out again today.
No, it's a pleasure, Matt. It's a really interesting subject. I think we need to hear a lot more about it going forwards, and look forward to touching base with you again.
Absolutely. And thank you all for taking the time to listen and watch, and we'll see you very soon again on another chat with Matt. Stay safe and take care. Thank you.